Hi, this is Daniel James, and this is Knockoff, with our pretty much finalised level design. So I think last time I showed it off it was just the block out. My fellow designer has come through with a bunch of meshes she sourced, and she placed in several of them to kind of decorate it, like this section here replaced the original kind of centre point. It was a different mesh she'd chosen, but the collisions on it weren't up to scratch, so we had to change it. But it was from this pack, and then these as well were placed on top of what was previously there, were just the blocks. These were placed on top of those, and also these elements here were added to be kind of our new spawn areas, and that was largely that, and also that I'm not sure if I think the water texture was in there last time. If not, there's a water texture. I've changed it around a bit, but yeah, there it is. Then what I did was do kind of a final pass to make sure everything was fine on like a gameplay basis. So what I did was make sure that these were lined up exactly with where the blocks were before, because I'd measured out the blocks very specifically to be appropriately placed to match with the player's jump height and move speed and stuff, to make the traversal really enjoyable. So yeah, I moved these to exactly where the blocks were, and make sure like stuff like these are exactly evenly spaced. This one and this one are perfectly spaced, all that kind of stuff. They're all at the same level on each axis, but just at a different plus or minus value. I also, made sure that this kind of decoration was on each of these, and then this section, the big pillar in the middle and these pillars on the outside, we weren't quite sure what we wanted to do with them. So in my final pass, I came through and made some decisions on that. So I built this pillar out of these blocks here, which is pretty similar to the kind of cylinder that we had here before. Except it's just, rather than just being a plain cylinder, it's just kind of rocky pillar, which is kind of fun. And I constructed this here, so we have this kind of dish element, this big altar. So I took one of those, and then I inverted it and placed another one on the bottom, and then I did the same at the top, so it's both kind of like flying saucer things, which I think creates a nice center point. It kind of contrasts the rest of the map a little bit. So it's a bit, what's that over there? I'll go investigate it. Also, we originally had kind of a brown, non-glowing version, but I think this kind of grey version with the blue means that the ice makes a bit more sense. We have these ice elements just because I wanted to use the slip platform obstacle that I designed, which, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense within the setting, but that's fine, really. So yeah, the blue element, it can kind of justify the ice. Maybe it's some sort of ice generating device. And yeah, these ice elements to go with the kind of rounded top I've put on here, rather than the square top it used to have. I've made these ice elements round as well, just to make it fit shape language wise. These pillars as well, these aren't singular meshes, these are constructed, so I used the blocks that I'd done down here, and made a kind of pillar, but that looked quite plain, so I then basically clad it in these planks here as well, just to make it a little bit more interesting looking. Also makes it look a bit kind of ramshackle and constructed, thinking kind of it's like a ruin that's being held up by like archaeologists or something. That's not the justification for the arena. The arena doesn't really need justification. We're in the world's wackiest game show. It can be however it wants to be. But that's kind of the vibe I was going for. What else have I done? I was speaking about these platforms, are kind of the majority of the level. I did also keep the original platform, the original blocks that were here, and just shrunk them down a bit. First and foremost because they have this instruction text on them right now, which our programmers are still going to need for when they put in the moving platform functionality and stuff. but also because this platform by itself, this mesh, doesn't have like a bottom to it. It's this will be gaps in between each of these things. So I wanted this to make it clear that that was a solid platform. We also have these pillars, these corners, again constructed out of the blocks to be in keeping with the center. And then this is pretty much the same as was during the block out. I wasn't sure whether we were going to keep that, but in the end I did. Made it out of slightly different stone, just to add some contrast. And then you'll notice that the beams that were sticking out of the sides of them before now are replaced with these branches, which are quite big branches, but they are they're kind of in keeping with the setting. We weren't sure what to do exactly with them. I got some feedback from the team that the beams were a little daunting, a little unfriendly for the player, and we are trying to make the game quite accessible. And obviously the idea is to make it more daunting than the straightforward path, because you want players to take this path of least resistance to the middle and fight, unless they're feeling daring and fancy taking a risk and going out here. But yeah, it was a little bit too daunting, so we talked about moving them in, but in the end what we decided to do instead, I was just I'd replace needed something to replace the beams, so I replaced them with these branches. And I just made the branches kind of longer and thicker than the beams were. Not at the end here, obviously, it's about as thin as the beams were. But over here it gets thicker, but that's balanced out by the fact that they're kind of irregularly shaped, so it's still a little bit challenging. But I also improved the rewards as well. I added an extra set of silver coins in each of these to make it a little bit more rewarding. These little platforms here are kind of just sandwiches of the light stone that I've got over here, and then the grass on top. I still need to find a placeholder for the kind of explosives here, but those will be dealt with once we have the functionality in for that. What's next? Oh yeah, I also made the water much larger as well, because it was only kind of quite a small area, whereas I think at this point I'm considering still making it larger. We're not sure exactly how demanding it would be performance-wise to keep making this bigger, but we'll see how it goes. Right now it's a good size, and I think it's big enough that you're less likely to notice the where it fades out, and well, it doesn't fade out, it stops, and you just have this regular block. But the issue is with the lighting, because if you're looking at it with the colour of that block, so if you're on this side, right, the block seems to be kind of the same colour as the water, and they kind of blend, but if you look somewhere else, they don't blend at all, so it's a little bit challenging. When I mess around with the lighting, maybe we'll make that a little bit easier to deal with, but we'll see. For now it's fine. We were also talking about a barrier around the level. I initially just put up some invisible walls, just a big cube around the level, which was fine, but then if you collided with it, it would just, stop you, which worked, it did the job, but it wasn't especially cool. Whereas now I think this solution that I've come up with is quite nice. I got this force fields asset, which when you click on it looks quite jarring, but yeah, it's a big force field asset, which is, I made it quite transparent as well. Initially it was a lot brighter than this, but I turned the transparency a lot stronger. I can always fiddle with that if it's still a little distracting, but for now it's just a little bit transparent, and that just shows to you, hey, this is the boundary of the level, you can't go past this point, and if you do, what we're going to do is add functionality for it, not just to stop you, because it is a collider, but in fact to repel you as though you've been hit with a rocket launcher or something, so you will be punished for doing that, which will reward players for skillful play, right? If someone does kind of veer near the edge of the platform, maybe they go high up in the air or something, and you manage to knock them into it, you'll be rewarded for that. Next up, we have the new power-ups, little placeholders I've created. Well, not placeholders at this point, it's probably kind of what the final design's going to be. These were constructed by me out of a few different assets. So I started with these icons, which is just like a 2D sprite, like from a UI pack for a series like ability icons is what I was going for. And what I'm trying to evoke here is a kind of Mario Kart-esque power-up boxes, and that's the kind of vibe we're going for. So I just got a normal just geometry cube and created a really bright, really emissive yellow material, put that on it, and then on each side stuck a sprite to depict what the power-up is. Place that above this here mesh, which is like a sci-fi projector mesh, just to give it somewhere to spawn, and it will show you even when this has been picked up that, hey look, here's a spawn point for a power-up, and then put a little light on top as well. And there's also a UI element which is going to show you the cost of it as well. And yeah, so that's the power-ups at the moment. Which power-up is where is going to be randomized. So when the game starts, each of these power-up projectors is going to spawn a random power-up, and then each time when it goes on cooldown, each time it comes back up, it will be a random one. So it's not, we won't have the speed one at the corners every time, all that kind of stuff. It'll be completely randomized. And yeah, that's about it, I think. This is our level for now. I think we can do some play with some lighting, maybe some volumetric effects, that kind of stuff. But in terms of the level design and the terrain and that kind of stuff, this is pretty much it. And it's looking pretty good. So yeah, there you go. Hopefully we should have a playable game pretty soon. Just making some tweaks to the combat, the firing system, and getting the animations going, and yeah, everything should be up and running in the next couple days, which is good because we've got about a week until the deadline.